Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast. Today, I am interviewing freedom fighter, truth seeker, human rights activist, business owner, and mother of three, Renee Altakrity. Renee shares her story on how her rights were taken away from her on May the 9th, 2020. She goes into detail on how she was unlawfully detained and how her son was abducted and taken away from her. In this episode, she explains to us what our rights are and why it's so important for us to know how we can protect our rights and ensure they won't be taken away from us. For those who are interested and can stomach watching the original video of Renee on the streets of Australia of when her rights were taken away from her and when the police ripped her son away from her, I have actually put the link in the show notes for you guys to watch. It is a YouTube link, and I will tell you right now, it is a hard one to watch. I also put in the show notes another fascinating interview with Renee on police brutality, and she goes into a little bit more detail of how she was actually treated and what exactly went on that day and what happened afterwards after she was sent to the police station and what happened to her son exactly after this whole scenario. You guys can find that out on the second link that I put in the show notes on there as well. I hope you guys can really learn something from this podcast episode and gain the awareness of how important it is for us to know what our rights are and for us to ensure that they won't be taken away from us. It is so important, more now than ever before, for us to know what our rights are and for us to stand up for them. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast episode. Hello, Renee. Welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast.
Hi, Arel. How you going today, beautiful?
I'm good. So good. It looks like
That's good.
Beautiful area.
I am. Yeah, I'm out the back of, it's a place just on the outside of Byron Bay, which is a beautiful place. Yeah, come away to get a little bit after everything going on. So nice, serene nature, earthing, connecting with nature, which is amazing. Yeah.
Good idea. First question I was going to ask you is what elevates your soul? And I'm wondering if it is nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely would say nature.
Yeah.
First and foremost, with my kids, unfortunately, I can't have them here with me right now because you wouldn't hear a word I was saying. Actually, they'd be swimming in the lake behind me, I think. Yeah, and also exercise. Exercise is a big thing for me. You know, getting those endorphins going and being able to have that time to focus on, you know, that's the body part, obviously, but yeah, it's very important, the exercise.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit frustrating with all the gyms closed. They've reopened up, but I think that'll change again.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your story earlier this year of how your rights were taken away from you?
Yeah, sure. Well, I come from basically not knowing any of my rights, and then with the lockdown happening, it made me question and investigate a few things. So yeah, I got onto a couple of groups and started to do some digging.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I thought, right, well, along with exercising, which I've got a passion for, as well as, you know, basically getting out there to people, what's my passion? And that was bringing the knowledge to people that we do actually have rights. Not that the government likes us to think we do. They like to keep us in the dark with a lot of things like that. And any small rights that we did have been slowly diminished and taken away.
Yeah.
So coupled with those two things, exercising and the rights, found a really cool idea of exercising our rights at a place down in the city, at Sydney City. Went down there on Saturday, the 9th of May, and my son and I were unlawfully arrested, or also known as armed kidnapped.
How old is your
Um,
son? How old is your son?
my my 4-year-old son.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, so he,
Were
and he's
you
got
for
rights
people
as well.
questioning what you did that was seen wrong, for the cops to rip your son away from you and arrest you, what was it that made them do that?
Yeah, so basically, so what was that, Arel? Why were they
Yeah,
questioning
for
why?
people who
Yeah.
haven't seen, what has happened to you in Australia, which is how I found you on the news, what exactly was
Yeah.
it that made the police want to arrest you and pull your kid away
Well,
from you?
yeah, well, look, they were basically saying to me, look, we need your name, we need your name, and I said, well, I'm not going to give you a name because I'm not committing any offence.
Yeah.
I said to them, if you can confirm that, I'm committing an offence, a criminal offence, and they said, well, no, you're not. I said, fine, okay,
And that
great, I'm glad
they
you've confirmed
they
that.
wanted your name because you were protesting or walking without a mask?
No, no. So it's not mandatory to have masks, and we are allowed to be exercising our rights. I wasn't breaking any of the COVID restrictions at all.
Mhm.
So I was working within their rubbish guidelines. So I believe that they actually just wanted to go home with some sort of fine, some
Right.
sort of infringement that they could give someone. Because people had been down on the street around 3 weeks leading up prior to me with their own family and children.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was anything new. But basically, I said no. Am I being detained? They said no. I said, am I committing an offence? They said no.
Uh-huh.
And then I made a statement. I said, so I'm free to go. And I was told yes. So I proceeded to walk. I did one or two other laps up the street, which took about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We were going to cross the road to go back to where our vehicle was parked.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was ripped back. My son and I were ripped back from the middle of the road and told we weren't going anywhere.
Wow.
So
And the second time they
yeah,
approached you, 15, 20 minutes after they were asking for your name and they approached you again, did they ask for your name again, or did they come at you basically preparing themselves to arrest you straight away?
yeah, it was they were already, yeah, they'd already prepared for the arrest. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
wow. Wow.
Abduction. I'll say abduction. Yeah.
Abduction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So explain to the people what exactly happened, why you call it abduction. Like, what did the police physically do to you?
Yeah. So basically, you can't just pull someone off the street and use force if they haven't committed a criminal offence. And this is
Right.
where, if you go back to knowing your rights,
Yeah.
the police cannot make an arrest unless you are hurting, causing harm or injury to any person or anything or person's property. And we weren't doing that. Even if I was breaking one of their COVID restrictions, I don't believe that that's grounds to rip a 4-year-old child out of a mother's arms and
Yeah.
traumatize him and I so much just so they could walk home with $1,000 fine.
Yeah.
There is no uh, there is no reason for them what they did, and they can't hide behind the fact that we were given an order, because as a person you have a choice to make a decision. Whether you're working or you're not working as an officer, these officers have to remember that their job is to serve and protect the people,
Yeah.
not to intimidate and bully and reprimand people, innocent mother and children, and people who are just walking down the street. We have liberties, we have rights, and we have freedoms. The
Yeah.
police officers should have been there that day to basically say, are you okay, Renee? Are you and your son okay? You're not being harmed by anybody else. You're free to walk the street.
Yeah.
So whether or not they were using me as an example to try and, stop people from coming out and actually having a voice,
Yeah.
it backfired on the morale. It's woken up so
Yeah.
many thousands of people. So
Good.
thank God for that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And isn't it, don't police officers get paid from our taxes anyway? Like, aren't we paying them to protect us?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. We are.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's the irony of it. Like, yeah, one of my signs that you couldn't see on my billboard that I had over me, the front read, "If you don't know your rights, then you don't have any," and then Magna Carta down the bottom. But on the back, it actually had um, public servants, remember your oath to serve the Constitution.
Mm,
So,
good.
yeah, they definitely weren't doing that day, that's for sure.
Yeah. Can you tell us what our rights are? I know you live in Australia yourself, and right now I'm based in New Zealand, and I have a lot of listeners in America as well. But if you can speak, I guess, for those three countries or as a generalization for the Western world, what are our rights and why is it important that we know them?
Okay, so look, there's quite a few, but the basic ones, Arel, would be we are able to walk about the land, our land, we're sovereign. So we are sovereign people, men, women, and children of the land, and we are able to walk this land without being having our travel or our journey stopped by anyone,
Yeah.
and without any harm. Now, you know, even just driving down the road, the police are not supposed to pull us over unless we have actually caused injury to someone.
Exactly.
So you've got to actually look at their system is all a private corporation, and they want us to enter into contract with them unknowingly. People enter into contract by handing over their driver's license, receiving the fine, paying the fine.
Mhm.
Even turning up to court is a way of entering into their system.
Right.
So it's going to be, it's a very hard one to challenge and work around unless you start looking into it and researching it.
Mhm.
So that's just the basic right. Being able to walk up and down freely in the street,
Yeah.
being able to do whatever you want to do on your own property, as long as you're not causing injury or harm to any person or a person's property,
Yeah.
then the world's your oyster, you know.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah.
If you like this episode and are enjoying the Elevate Your Soul podcast, please help support me by sharing it with someone you know who could benefit from this episode or from this podcast by copying and pasting the link or simply sending them a screenshot. I would also love for you to write me a review on whatever app you're listening to this on. It really helps get this information out there. And if you'd like to support the podcast even more by helping me help you to create more ad-free content with incredible guests for free that help inspire people and elevate souls all around the world, please support me through my Patreon site at patreon.com/elevateyoursoul. You can be a part of my support network by making a small monthly donation to help me get the resources I need and dedicate my time to research and video and audio content. Or contribute a little more to also help guide the direction of the podcast by requesting episode topics or guests to interview. And if you can contribute even more, you will have all of the above plus a monthly one-on-one life coaching call with me so that I can help you directly. That's patreon.com, patreon.com/elevateyoursoul. Any support goes from me back to all of you and is greatly appreciated. Why is it that
Yep.
we feel that we don't have the right to speak up or, as
Yep.
you said, stand up for your rights against people with authority like the police?
Yeah, look, it's all part of the conditioning process. And from when we're young, we're actually conditioned right from, you know, even I was at a zoo with the kids this morning, and there was like a little barrier in front of the counter, and the little girl with her mum was waiting to purchase something, and the girl was climbing up on top of that seat near the counter, and her mother stopped her straight away and said, "You're not allowed to climb there. You need to be safe. Like, keep a safe distance." So the parents, it's up to the parents to to teach their children between lawful and legal,
Right.
or illegal, I should say.
Yeah.
So basically, you know, they go to school, the children go to school, and the indoctrination starts from the home and then in the schools and then into further studies. So we're ingrained that, oh, police have a gun, oh, police have a uniform, those men in blue we have to be scared of.
Yeah.
It's the other way around, and when they do pull you over, you just need to say, and the first thing they do is they have their flashing sirens.
Yeah.
And the first thing you need to say is, officer, uh, you've got your sirens on and your lights on. Is there an emergency? Because they're only supposed to use their sirens in an emergency.
Right.
And then they'll be like, oh, no, no, no. Well, hang on. You've just now declared a false emergency.
Yeah.
So you've actually broken your own your own law that you should be following. And then, just asking the questions. And there's lots of stuff out there on YouTube on how to tackle the police if they pull you over or if they pull you up in the street, especially now because of, all the COVID rubbish.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are actually speaking up now and saying, hang on, guys, I think what we need to do is undo and unlearn everything we've been taught and then retrain ourselves with the proper way. And you need to eliminate that fact, the fact that they don't have the rights we do. They're working for us, they're employed by us, they
Yeah.
are our public servants. So relearning, retraining, going back to basics, and then just stay very polite with them. No, officer, I don't have a name to give you, because that's the other thing too, Yarrell. We need to be also really establishing our body and our divine spirit that lives within. So it's called, I don't know if you've heard of the terminology straw man.
Strawman.
So if picture this, is my wallet here is a piece of paper, that's my birth certificate. It's got a special number on it that my mother, willfully lodged for me as a baby, goes off to births, deaths and marriages. Now this birth certificate here with this little number gets traded on the stock exchange. We become a commodity for the country. So it all comes back to, it's in that system. And if it's all, wound up in admiralty law as well. So if you look at birth, boats come to the birth. If you look at citizenship, what's the word citizenship means? It's slave, citizen is slave, citizenship, slave to the ship.
Right.
So, there's a lot of digging you can do and a lot of powerful stuff that you can actually research to become knowledgeable. So when the police pull you over, you can actually pull them up on everything and say, well, hang on, I'm not actually Renee. This is Renee and I am principal for Renee, like my birth certificate or whatever ID you might have on you. I'm just principal. Renee Altakrity is the woman on the paper, yes, and that's my fictitious name, which I've claimed. And you can do that through the common law courts. So for those of you interested in claiming your birth certificates the right way and your fictitious names, you can go into common law court Australia or whichever country you're in. All the Commonwealth countries have that available, so you can do that. But and then it's saying, then I would particularly say to the police officer after saying, I am principal for Renee, I am me. I don't actually have a name. My spirit doesn't have a name. And that's where you start connecting the dots with the sovereignty. We are just spirits. Our bodies are vessels, just like a car. Our bodies are the vessel to walk on this land and enjoy the luxuries that this land has to offer.
Interesting.
Mm.
So what things can we do to protect our rights and ensure that they won't be taken away from us?
Well, in situations like this, Arel, where the government's testing, so the lockdowns, the restrictions they place. Like just now, I went in to buy a soda water, and the man said, "Oh, are you drinking it inside?" And I said, "No, I'm going to go sit on the park bench."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, if you sit inside, you have to put your details down." I said, "Well, I wouldn't put my details down anyway, but I'll be sitting outside." So it's all about, they want us to comply. If we all stand staunch and say, I am not complying and I will not abide by your bullshit, basically, then the more of us that do that, the more that they start going, well, we can't control the mass.
Exactly.
If we all don't comply, then they're losing, and I believe they already are losing. It's just a matter of more people getting the balls to actually stand staunch and
Mhm.
stand in their own.
And what about those people who are listening and they're worried about their safety, or they're worried about their children's safety, and they feel like they need to comply in order to protect their health and their family? What would you say to them?
Look, Carell, I'm a mother of three boys under six, and first and foremost, being a mother is my frontline job. Wouldn't call it a job. My frontline value is to my family. Um, we have to connect with divine source. We have to remember that fear is no good.
Mhm.
We have to eradicate the fear through, whether it's meditation, whether it's being spiritual, whether it's calling on God, whether it's calling on whichever your creator, whichever you like to do, you really need to get into that zone where you have and you feel that protection.
Yep.
And it's a hard one to tackle. I've been there, and you go through ups and downs, and it is challenging, especially when you've got children who depend on you,
Yep.
and being the mother. But you definitely have to connect with your creator and having that sense of I'm untouchable, and no matter what happens to me, it's not going to be without the will of my creator.
Yep.
So that day when I went into the city and I had 5 hours in the cell that day and I didn't even know where my son was, I could have sat in the cell bawling my eyes out and going, oh my gosh, my life is over, and
Mhm.
oh, what's happened? But rather than doing that, I sat there. I felt my blood pressure dropping because I suffer from low blood pressure. So
Yep.
I laid on the concrete seats in the cell, and I elevated my legs, and I started breathing and just meditating and praying and saying,
Mhm.
I I did say, what the hell just happened to me, and how on earth are my son and I going to come back from this? However, as I was praying, I just felt this protection, like, Renee, so many good things are going to come from this. You're
Mm.
not going to know what they are right now, but
Mm.
I will unravel that journey for you if you trust in me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and look, there's a lot of people in the movement, Arel, who have families, and we all say the same thing. That you put on that armor every morning. You put on that spiritual armor of your creator, or you connect in whatever which way you can and feel that protection,
Yep.
and you're untouchable. You really are.
And what sort of things combat that? Like, would you say watching a lot of mainstream media news gets in the
Yep.
way of that? Or like for people who feel like they need to watch the news to be informed and to be safe and things like that, like, do you feel like that watching too much mainstream
Yeah.
media gets in the way of feeling safe? Or
Yep.
yeah.
My advice would be to not watch any mainstream media. Excuse me. Um, that is the biggest fear mongering technique that I've actually experienced since the whole pandemic, since day dot. Really, if you look at all the news releases, they all say the same thing. They're all driven by the same narrator. They all put this fear into the people who are watching, and that fear is made to, oh, that person tells this person, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
I remember my husband turning the TV on back in the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, and I just turned to him and I said, "You know what? You need to turn that off right now." You could just hear and feel the fear in the journalists or in the reporters' voices,
Yeah.
and it's like, hang on, I'm connected with divine source here. I am untouchable, and nothing is going to penetrate my barrier.
Hmm.
But the one thing that we need to remember is that this was part of the plan. The media, if you notice, they're all playing the same thing, they're all saying the same thing, all the stats are the same, they're all driving that same agenda.
Yeah.
Use your intuition. We all have that sixth sense about us, and it's up to us to actually lock that on it could be, some people might call it intuition, others might call it your third eye.
Mm-hmm.
Lock that on and look at what you can do to lock that on and turn that on, and start using that and relying on your own abilities to be intuitive, rather than listening to someone who's actually got a financial gain to make out of the whole pandemic.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be educated to do that, because that's our infinite gift. Like,
Yeah.
that's a gift that comes without, it doesn't cost
Wisdom.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So yeah, I'd say to people, steer clear, keep your TVs off. But it also works in the other way too, Arel. Like, I know myself, I went down so many rabbit holes with the deep state
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
with the whole pandemic.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started to just go crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it was, whoa, this is too much.
Yeah.
And then I said, no, I'm going to pull back. And it's really hard, because I've got hundreds of people every day messaging me, literature and information that
Yeah.
I can be reading. But I have to just, dust over it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I feel 1000% spiritually
Want to it.
intact,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to just let it go,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can slowly introduce,
Yeah.
the agendas into your life. But you have to get up here, right? You have to be
Yes.
thinking, you know I divine source, relying on having no fear.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? If you're waking up anxious, then you shouldn't be going down any rabbit holes, or
Yeah.
looking at any information, or
Yeah.
turning any TVs on, even Facebook and Instagram. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that will give you anxiety, because there's so much.
Yeah.
And that's where if you're in touch with yourself and how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I had to do it. I had to pull back and just go
Yes.
back to the meditation, go back to, certain people who were sort of promoting more positive, and we're winning, and the vibrations, and the, keeping connected on the high vibrations, and not worrying about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get your mind right, you go back slowly, and take what information you want to take, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important. And it's almost like, as you said, when you tap into your intuition, it's almost like you do research intuitively too. Like, you kind of know what YouTube video to watch, or if someone sends you something, like, you just intuitively feel like, do I feel
Yeah.
able to watch this or read into this or not?
Yeah, and music too. Music's amazing. One thing, going back to when you said, what is it that makes you feel,
Elevate people.
connect, elevated? Yeah, definitely music. Music is so important. And there's so many songs. So I'm just putting my jumper on here. There is so many songs that are right for now. And even if you go back to Bob Marley days, and Natalie Rise, she's amazing. She's got a really good song out at the moment that's so applicable to the times that we're in.
Cool.
Yeah, so music's definitely my go-to place if I can't make the exercise happen.
Yeah. If you could give a message to anyone who's working in a position of authority right now, or a police officer, someone who's working in the police force, what would you say to them in times like this?
Look, it's what I would say pretty much, Arel, to what I've just said, to the general people.
Yeah.
That intuition, as an officer,
Uh-huh.
what you're doing is not right. Like, those 500 officers standing down at Melbourne at the moment, out the front of those buildings, unlawfully caging up those people, and then threatening people who are coming to actually stand by their brothers and sisters who were stuck in those buildings.
Can you explain what
I
you
would
mean in
say,
that situation there? I don't know if I'm. Uh,
oh, okay. So there's a couple of buildings down in Victoria and Melbourne at the moment that are being locked down
okay.
by the police.
And the
There's
rest of
500
Melbourne
police.
is on lockdown as well?
Yeah, the rest of Melbourne's on lockdown as well. Yep.
Okay.
So basically, are you going to sell your soul to the devil with these police officers? You're selling your soul to the devil. Your children are going to be cursed. Your family will be cursed. Mark my words, from what you're doing right now. You're following. It's like the Pied Piper. He's playing the tune, and they're all following. You have a moral compass. The police officers have a moral compass, and I just why they're not actually following the moral compass is quite scary.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's, are they part of it? Are they just scared? They want to maintain their jobs? My
Right.
message would be, you also have to be in contact with your creator and find that connection. Pray about your your orders, and God will provide, your creator will provide. If you're worried about losing your job, you will be provided for if you do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a
So
bit worried, Arel. Actually, my battery's just gone down to 5%, so I hope you can
we're
still
we're
see me
almost we're
okay.
almost finished here.
No,
Um,
all good, all good.
Last question I have for you is like who inspires you and where do you get most of your information from? When you said you were learning about your rights and to stand up for them, like during the time you're researching, like is there someone who you look up to or somewhere where you
Yeah,
get that
yeah,
information?
yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of places that I would love to recommend people to get in contact with to further gain knowledge moving forward, like a resolution almost. Definitely common law courts. You can reach out to them. There's a couple on Facebook, and I can send you a few links too when I get back home, Arel, and you can put that in with the feed.
Yeah.
Also, the People's Collective or the United Collective, as well as Medical Freedom Group Australia. Um, there's Solutions Empowerment, I'm pretty sure it's called.
Hmm.
There's some very intelligent people on there that have been doing this for over 20, 30 years. And, you know, you work with a powerhouse group and you get the support if an event arises in your life or you've got questions. And, you know, they could be questions about, you know, the voluntary tax that individuals are supposed to be paying, or they could be questions about, you know, your mortgages and how they're, you know, a lot of these things have been set up fraudulently. Um, so definitely they would be a few to name, you know, a few names to mention. Know Your Rights Group as well, Mike Palmer there, he's a good one to look at. That's where I started.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many intelligent people. There's Facebook's messages, groups galore out there for people to be able to source, you know, our rights from as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, it was
And yeah,
so good to
yep.
connect with you.
You're yeah. Likewise, Zarel. Thank you very much. And you know, love, light, and peace to all the work that you're doing as well, bringing that awareness to people around the world. It's amazing. You know, we're truth seekers, and that's what the world needs more of.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.